Thank you for joining XROM, which is India's first AR/VR focused podcast. And today I'm delighted to have with me Shalin Shodhan, who is a musician and game designer with a background in education. He has worked on 3 Oscar films and a BAFTA-winning game, plus worked on apps that have topped App Store charts worldwide. He's currently the director at Masala Games that has built the first Indian playground in Fortnite called Loot Biskoot. And he's ex-Disney Imagineering VR studios as well as Pixar. So, Shalin, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. This is an introduction which I've pulled from the net. It will be great if you could give a story, background on yourself and what made you get into game design.
Yeah, man. I could hear little lines from really old resumes somewhere. No, I'll give you my story. So basically, I've been in games and film for about 20 years. I was in the US for 11 of those years, and got a chance to work at Pixar, where I was there for 5 years and worked on 6 films, from Toy Story 3 to Finding Dory. I had a great experience learning everything about what goes into the film production pipeline. And I was also at Electronic Arts for 4 years, where I worked on the game Spore. And for Spore, I was hired directly out of grad school by Will Wright, the legendary game designer Will Wright. And that was an incredible opportunity for me, because when he hired me, there were only 10 people on Spore, and it was just a prototype. And to stay and watch that game from prototype all the way to shipping and becoming Spore, that we know, was an incredible learning journey for me. So just had just a front row seat to some of the most world class entertainment production. And around 2014, my wife and I, we became parents of twin boys. So we decided to move back to India and raise our children here with family support. And I was very lucky. Like, at the time, I was working with a company called Lumos Labs. They make a very popular brain training games program called Lumosity, and they just allowed me to work remotely in 2014, which wasn't as commonplace as it is now. And very lucky to have their faith, and it gave me a very soft landing here in India. And I sort of didn't really skip anything. I just kept going, and eventually they were also instrumental in what is now Masala Games, because they were sort of our first clients, and they were the folks that said, "Hey, Shalin, we have some projects. Can you make a team?" And that's how I had my first hire. And here we are now. Masala Games is almost 30 people, and we've been doing client services of all kinds for the past 6 odd years. And at some point we realized, like, we're delivering a lot of success for our clients, but we have some conviction, we have some ideas as well. Let's bet on ourselves. So about a year ago, we started building our first original game, which is Detective Dotson, which is a story of a small time detective in a big time city in modern day India. And that's basically also the same universe is also what sprouted the UEFN level that you mentioned, the Fortnite level that you mentioned. Fortnite level is made out of all the same assets that we use in Detective Dotson, because Detective Dotson is a game and a 3-part animated mini-series at the same time, because we want to do the narrative and the interactive at the same time. And we'll talk more about why we are doing that, and why this is a good time to do that, and why this is a good time to tell stories from India. But that's my longish version of my background.
Lovely. How cool is that? So you've been around, right from being part and playing a pivotal role in Toy Story and Finding Dory, to being part of Electronic Arts, the game design, creating Spore, then building Masala Games, and from starting from a single member team to now, right now, you said it's a 30-member team, building India's own gameplay design plus a three-part mini series. Would want to talk a little bit more about that. I think it'll be great if you could talk about your journey, from being like a single member game developer in Masala Games to now getting, like a 30-member team altogether. What's the journey been, and the highs and lows? Maybe it'll be great if you could talk about that.
It happened very organically, because clients said, like, we have this thing, and I'm like, well, I've got this other stuff, I can't do it, so let me try. And and let me find the best person that I know and see if they can do it, and we'll do a pilot. And the pilot started, wasn't working, and then something flipped and it started working, and I'm like, oh, okay, this works. And yes, it's there's a lot of, there is this stress to when someone can't do or won't do or isn't able to do what you expect them to do, what you think they'll be able to do. There is an incredible joy to when they do better than what you think they should or be able to do. And for me, that was a really, it still is a learning experience to manage that. Of course, I really enjoy when my team excels and goes beyond my expectation. But how do I manage? How do I keep investing? How do I keep supporting and encouraging them to participate and to do better when they don't meet my expectations has been the sort of learning journey for me in becoming a better manager, and to resist not just doing it for them, right? Because my first instinct as a builder myself is to just go fix the problem with my bare hands, right? And you can't do that if you want to scale to 30 people. You can't do the job of 30 people. So so that's been an amazing, it's been an amazing learning experience. And I'm so glad that I got past my sort of barriers of like, oh, I don't want to manage people or whatever, because what I realized about myself is I love learning. I love starting from zero, and I should never have these kind of artificial barriers saying, oh, I don't like to do X. Like, that should never be a mindset that I have, because it's so much fun to get into something that you have no business getting into, and then doing well over there is incredibly rewarding. And I'm glad that my team has constantly surprises me and amazes me, and basically makes me wake up in the morning and want to come into work and kick ass, right? So that's a bit about the growth of the company. Yeah.
Lovely, cool. And I think being a lifelong learner is such a cool thing, and I think everybody should inculcate that habit, because we're getting into a world where earlier, being narrow, being great at one thing was, really looked up, like, okay, that's really cool. You can multitask, but, we live in a world where there's so much complex dynamics which is coming into play. And, if you can, multitask, if you can be a individual that's wearing multiple hats, that adds so much to a portfolio of a company, because then an individual is adding so much more to a company. Because I think today there are small companies who are competing against these giants, and that's possible only because when we have these individuals wearing these multiple hats. So I think being a lifelong learner is so very important, critical in today's day and time.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. What was the urge or nudge from servicing others, building games for the others, to creating your own IP, Detective Dotson?
Yeah, that's wow, that's a very deep itch that we wanted to scratch and I wanted to scratch for a very long time. And not just as an individual, but as a team, we've always believed that we could make world-class products, and it always pains me a little bit when I see that as an industry, the Indian gaming isn't dreaming big enough, and they're looking for shortcuts, they're looking for close follows, they're a little bit a narrow focus in terms of just the like acquisition, monetization kind of area, rather than thinking big in terms of creating franchises and boldly making IPs. Failing, it's okay, just going and believing in themselves, right? And we've never for a second doubted that we could be that. We just were always so busy and productively occupied that we never got that chance. And finally we said, okay, now like we're in a position. This is the right time. It's the right project, and let's go. And it was this time when a few people were transitioning off of some of the other client work, and I had some amazing talent that was basically available. And so instead of going and looking for new work, we basically said, okay, let's go. Let's do this. This is the time. So that was, but yeah, I mean, it's that I can't even tell you since when I wanted to uh, tell stories of my own and put stuff in front of the world.
Like, I hope that the listeners, whether it's individual game designers, developers, or game studios, take that, because I guess, we're living in a fantastic point of time. There's so much tools, which will allows you to do, great gameplays and game designs. Could you I mean, share the process of, right from the storytelling, the game world design, to, from the beginning to, right now, to, being up and running the detective Dotson, the process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think you really touched on something that is key, and it's a switch that fell, I think, in the last 24 months, which is that the tools that are available now have made it possible for a small team to really, really punch high. And like Unreal Engine, for example, blurs the lines between cinema and games, right? And that's not something that we should take lightly. I mean, that is a huge thing that the graphics and the real-time graphics industry has been trying to do forever. And it's like now, sort of like, as of the last 24 months, it's like it's happening, and and we were obviously, I've been a computer graphics professional my whole life, so that's something that was so exciting to me. And identifying that, we said, okay, we're not just going to make a game, we're going to make an animated series and a game at the same time. And we're going to take the same assets, the exact same characters, the same world, and we're going to send them, the pipeline is going to send them into two places. For cinematic rendering, like, beautiful looking, show kind of content, and for performance rendering on your mobile phone or on your PC or wherever the game can be played. And from day one, that's been the plan. Is there is no reason now to say, oh, I'm going to need two separate teams, or I'm going to need two separate set of assets, or any of that, if you want to make narrative and interactive content. This is only very recently possible, and we're capitalizing on that unlock that has happened. So that's the basic idea. Now, when we were thinking about Indian detective game and show, when we get to the part about like the why an Indian story needs to be told in a second, but we really wanted to show India the way it is. And that extended into this concept of like, okay, well, the sets should be very realistic, or they should be 3D at least, and they should be fairly real. They should feel, like how I would walk out and experience India, because we want the world to experience that. Modern India, not ancient India or anything like that. It should be like it is now. And then the characters, we really wanted them to pop out of that sort of real world, because India is very textural. It's very like, there's vegetation everywhere. It's very full on, and we wanted the characters to pop out of that. So how do we do that? So the characters are very, very graphic. They're pixel art and they're bright colors. And we did a small test of that, and we absolutely fell in love with that style. We're like, oh my God, there's like very little out there that embraces this style. It is a striking style. And it also plays to our strengths, where we know we can build this 3D world and make it really beautiful. And we know that we can deliver amazing and complex character animation in this like 2D pixel art format, much better than we could do that if we went full on 3D characters. That's like a huge investment to like really make those characters sing. And I don't know if you heard of the uncanny valley, but basically the more complex your characters look in modeling fidelity, the harder it is to animate them to make them look real. And we don't want to fall into that trap. So our modeling fidelity is very low. The characters are literally flat 2D, and the animation fidelity is very high. So we want to be in that happy space. And that's how this kind of whole thing of like 2D and 3D mix came together. That takes place in the game as well as in the show. The cameras obviously have to be like pretty fixed. So we don't have any shots where the camera rotates. The camera mostly just pans and looks at the camera at the characters straight on or side on, right? So it's always 90-degree turns, and that's fine. That's constraints are always good. I always find constraints to be good for creativity. And within those constraints, within this kind of vision of the world, we started building stuff. We started with a trailer, it ended up being a very long trailer, and that was obviously a mistake, but it was really fun to make that and establish our pipeline and understand what works and what doesn't work. And we found some very surprising things. For example, storyboards didn't work for us, and which is a very weird thing, because you always, animation industry, you start with concept and storyboard, and follow that through, and that's how you organize everything. It's the sort of the spine of everything. And what happened for us was different departments were having trouble interpreting the storyboards in the same way, and that was a real issue. Also, being a completely remote team, right? that was a real issue. And so again, this sort of switch that flipped, that enabled us to achieve what we're achieving, is we just started blocking all our shots in Unreal Engine directly. So we don't do storyboards. We go straight to engine and block out everything, every camera angle. Where's this character? Where are the two characters? What's the over the shoulder? Everything is just blocked in engine. We don't actually sketch it out. We are sketching it in 3D in the engine. And that blocking with a scratch voiceover is then delivered to the animation department, and then they animate it, and then that comes back to rendering, and that's how our shots get output. So, counterintuitive things, little things about the process that came forth once we kind of started building this trailer. And then once we completed the trailer, we said, okay, here we go. Now the story was starting to form by that time. We said, okay, now here we go. Let's make the episodes. And that's when we set off.
Lovely. How cool is that? I mean, so through the process, you have done things which it was not linear. So instead of going storyboarding, you use the Unreal Engine platform itself to do the blockouts of all the scenes, and then so how cool is that? Now you mentioned the things have flipped a bit, I mean, because earlier only these huge game design studios, AAA game design studios could, think about, building these, big games. But today, we have these tools which is getting more and more democratized, right from, you mentioned about Unreal Engine to there are a lot of these Gen AI applications and platforms which allows you to do text to 3D, text to world building, and so on and so forth. Can you elaborate on this shift? Do you see it getting more democratized, right from content creation to game design, because these tools are now, which is still in this nascent stage, there is a lot of hype around it, but with this convergence of AI to these tools, do you see the future of game design to have more AI tools? Do you see more people who don't know much about content creation or game design joining in and shaping what maybe the content creation or the future of game is going to look like?
Yeah, let me answer it in two parts, and I'll bring AI into the later part. So I'll just give you a continuum, right? So when I was on the sport team, I was hired as a core engineer. So I was working on the shadow system, like actually doing the shadows of all the things that are in there. And whatever, it took me, 3 to 6 months to really finalize the system and deliver it. And then if you cut to 5 years later, and Unity Engine was out and doing really well, you just press a button and you get the shadows, basically. Like, you don't have to do anything, right? So in those 5 years, that whole thing that I used to do for 3 to 6 months was just gone. It's like available to anybody, just press a button, shadows are great. Now, now we're in the 2015, circa 2015, right? And there, if you're making a game and you have to, do multiplayer and, have 15, 20 people in the world running around 3D, everything, that's pretty hard. Like, not everybody could pull that off. That required some serious technical investment to do that properly. Cut to now, if you look at UEFN, you could make a multiplayer game in 2 weeks, right? And you don't even have to worry about the multiplayer. That's just a thing that exists. It's just a button. It's literally that easy now. And whatever the pros and cons of UEFN are, we can't deny the fact that it's made it that easy to make a multiplayer game. And so if you go back in time and tell someone in 2015 or 2008 that, oh yeah, in the future, you'll be able to make multiplayer games, just they will just be multiplayer. You just start making the game and other people can just join. You don't have to worry about any of the infrastructure or anything. Their minds would be blown, right? And so we need to acknowledge how spoiled we are right now. And now let's extend that to AI. So let's just throw away all the hype and all of that. If AI reaches its potential, which I'm sure it will, it's going to be in a much more silent way, where it is an underlying technology that solves the basic problems that we have that get us closer to making cool things faster, right? And more democratic, in a more democratic way. So if I was to harbor a guess, I would say the big problem right now is discovery, right? I know that the game I'm making has, X million people of this kind and that, that kind of preference that would love my game. I have no idea how to reach them, right? Like it's very, very difficult to reach them. I think that is the problem that technologies like AI will solve. To me, there isn't a big screaming problem in production that AI needs to solve. I mean, not to discourage any of the research in AI production tools, I think the technology will be a little bit more, it'll be solving smaller pain points, and it already has. Let's just ignore all the hypey, all the there's this whole markety kind of stuff that happens to all these new technologies. That just silence all that and think in terms of okay, this is really going to solve problems for sure. It's not going to replace anybody's jobs, just like a graphics programmer is still valuable to this day, right? Just because Unity gives you a shadow from one button doesn't mean that the graphics programmer job has been taken away. It's still a relevant profession. In the same way, everybody's jobs are still going to be there. We're just going to be using different tools. We're going to be learning different tools, and that's totally fair. And I think, and I welcome that change. So I hope that makes sense in terms of a continuum of where AI is going to plug in. It's going to be much more less sexy than some of the hype makes it sound, but very, very potent and it's going to solve real problems.
No, fair enough. Completely. I think, you hit the point home that, we need to cut the hype and start building and keep on building, something which is really useful. You mentioned that, discovery is the largest problem. Agreed. You also mentioned that AI could be that tool to help in discovery. If you have some insights, around that, how that would help.
I do. I absolutely do. I'm, on the side actually kicking around these ideas and would love to actually go down that path and form a product out of it. But in very short way, I could frame the problem as something like this. How annoying is it when you're looking for something to watch on Netflix, right? You spend so much time saying, I don't want to watch this. Oh, I don't want to watch that. And we must say that Netflix isn't doing a great job of suggesting good titles to you. It just isn't. It doesn't know you enough for whatever reason. No matter how creepy it gets in terms of collecting your data, it just does not know you. And that's not a dig at Netflix. I mean that in general. Even YouTube, yes, it does a decent job of showing me videos that I might be interested in, but it's not anticipating my context and my need well enough. And I think that's where AI is going to be so good, because it's going to get better and better, hopefully more private at understanding me and then giving my context to whatever search system. So search is basically what AI is going to solve, right? With better context, better understanding of who is searching, and then pulling out the right things and knowing me. And the beautiful thing about AI is this core concept that it gets better with time, with use. So as it knows me, it gets better at knowing me. And, that I think just gets me excited about the future, about how powerful that will be in terms of connecting audiences truly with the products that they like, not controlled by, some kind of algorithm, which did great to get us to this point, is clearly now not working.
Right. No, fair enough. But yes, that knowing me part, does get into that little creepy zone also, because I mean, like you rightfully pointed out, AI gets better with time, with more data, the more learning it infers out, throws out more intelligence, and eventually I hope we don't get into a surveillance state where all the data is hoarded by a centralized in a company. So yeah, but I think yes, the AI could, I mean, has the potential to play a larger role in on all aspects of, from discovery to other spaces also. How is the detective Dotson game response, both the game as well as the three-part series? And it'll be good if you could talk about your Fortnite game, UFN game, Loot Biskoot.
Yeah, we're in very early days with the Dotson game. We just launched our demo on Steam as part of Steam Next Fest, and we got great response there. In terms of, like, Steam Next Fest has like 2,500 games that they feature, and Steam itself makes a small trailer of a few games that they like, and that's about 25 games out of the 2,500, and we were one of those games, and so that was like a great boost to our confidence. What is vibing really well with people is the general presentation, the novelty of it is truly resonating with people. The music, I'm very proud to say that the music, we're getting great reviews about the vibe that creates, and the sense of place that we've hoped to create is really resonating. The gameplay is nascent, and obviously right now it's just one mission. It's very simple, and people are liking it, but there's nothing to really sing home about, because there isn't anything there, to be honest, in terms of novelty or some amazing gameplay. That's the part that we're still working on. You obviously don't want to give everything away in the demo. And the way game development works now is you meet the market and you sort of do everything out in the open till from demo you go to early access to you go to 1.0, right? And that's the road that we are on now. And we'll be releasing lots of exciting new gameplay in the coming months. So, but overall, as good a response as we could have hoped for in terms of what we've decided to do, the vibe, the environment, and the characters that we've created, the style is all resonating with the audience, and we're getting great support there. So that's been great. The show, we've only done like trailers and stuff. It's not out there yet. But the show, whoever we've shown it to, or if we've shown clips internally and stuff like that, it's really, really resonating, and people are absolutely falling in love. And see, the whole point of the show is to be this your first access to the Detective Dotson universe, right? It's a low barrier of entry way to see this like weird new thing and be like, oh my god, like I really like this, and then it's like, okay, do you really like it? There is a whole game you can play. You can roam around in this same world, and that's sort of our strategy and plan, which is to grab people with that low barrier of entry. Just watch the show, watch an episode, watch a short, watch a clip, and then realize that there's a whole game behind this, and not just one game. There's going to be more as time and production allows. We'll do much more to keep the audience always wanting that one more mission, that one more thing to play or watch from the Detective Dotson universe. So it's early days to give you an answer on the response. The UEFN level, it's it was something that our friends at Epic really encouraged us to build, and I'm very glad we built it, because it really opened my eyes to like, oh my god, this is as close as it gets in current day to the movie Ready Player One. Like that's what UEFN enables. Like it's basically Ready Player One done properly, in current tech as well as one might hope. And again, the problem there is not creation. It's really fun to make stuff. It's discovery. And I'll give you a little stat. Like, we were featured for just 1 hour on like the new releases or one of their like sections that is pretty visible, and it got like 3,000 plays, right? Just from that 1 hour. And otherwise it's not getting it's getting double-digit plays, right? So the fact that you can get 3,000 plays from just an hour of featuring, that would mean like if you were featured for a week, you'd get about 5,000 plays. And if you were feature for a month, it would be like 20,000 plays. And excuse me, it would be uh, 50,000 plays and 200,000 plays. Sorry.
Dude, you're bad at maths, but so cool.
Right. So that exposure is completely in the hands of the platform right now, which is a bit worrying. I know they're working on this, but there isn't even a way I could link you to my level. I just have to give you a code. You have to copy and paste it inside Fortnite, right? So when the deep linking arrives, when some of the discovery ecosystem around this stuff gets better, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think every studio is probably going to at least try this out. And I think what I mean by trying it out is making several levels in several different teams, trying to position your assets in the best possible way, and having a presence in this space. If the audience resonates with it, it's a massive audience. If the platform projects you in a good light, it's a massive audience. So like, it's a huge opportunity there. And all of this kind of plays to our original strategy, which is we are interested in building and telling the story and building this universe of Detective Dotson based in modern India. And whatever the latest and greatest is offered to us by the entertainment industry, we will go there and meet our audience, right? So whether that's a UEFN, or whether that's a show on YouTube, or whether that's a game on Steam or a game on mobile, yes to all of that, right? And we positioned ourselves, our content pipeline, in a way that we could do that effectively.
Right. I believe the music score for Detective Dotson is composed by you, right?
Yeah, yes, composed and performed by myself and my wife.
Oh, but how cool is that? So I mean, it's so very important. I mean, coming back to the same point, and I mean, being a lifelong learner and wearing multiple hats, it's so very cool. That you are able to do the entire thing by yourself. In the course conversation you were mentioning about, things are coming closer and closer to Ready Player One. I mean, it's that metaverse, that I think everybody is talking about, the virtual world, which is going to get so potent, so that you'll have not just people playing games inside that world. You'll also have education, you have healthcare, and so on and so forth, all existing in this virtual world that we're talking about. Us transitioning from our 2D world to this 3D world, where we'll go from carrying technology to wearing technology, possibly, like with these AR VR glasses, or possibly maybe much more future, possibly like these BCIs, brain computer interfaces, where you will be inside those gameplays, where you'll be touch feeling the world. And so what are your thoughts on this AR, VR, MR, metaverse in a world? Are you guys building for it, and you have a view or insight on when this metaverse that we're talking about, which has gone through its hype cycle, is going to be a reality?
Yeah. So again, I feel the hype does a disservice to the underlying technology and what it's actually good for and what its potential is, because it overhypes, right? Ultimately, it all comes down to an experience, right? And how can you make good experiences more and more and more accessible and more immersive, right? We always, like, along with the hype cycle, there's always the balancing act of the negatives that are always said as like, oh, people will get less connected and they're on the stupid glasses all the time, and what's the point of that and all that, right? And I guess my view is that, let's say I want to go on a roller coaster, but what if I can't? What if there is a reason where I just can't? Because I might have a physical issue, or I might have a financial issue, or whatever it might be. But there is a thing that enables me to go on some version of the roller coaster in whatever technology is available today and experience it, right? If you can bring experiences to people that couldn't have even imagined 5% of that joy, of that experience, if you can solve that even a little bit, then I think that technology is worthwhile, that area of exploration is worthwhile, and we must do it. but we should pitch it and position it as that and not something else where saying and put stuff all our lives in this. And I hope we don't, because and I know that a lot of culture goes there. And I've also been addicted to a particular game. It's happened to all of us where I remember when I was a kid, we would rent out the Nintendo from the video library, and we would rent it out for a weekend. And on Monday, our thumbs would be hurting because we would just be playing continuously, right? And so, of course, these fun experiences are insanely addictive, and the more immersive they get, the more addictive they will get. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because we as human beings have very little self-control on average, speaking in general terms. And so it's important to be careful about that and perhaps leverage that for good rather than, just some, financial purpose or whatever it might be. So I guess my point is to say that I love all the advances. There's so much to explore and improve on in terms of what we're doing in terms of experiences, right? Like rubbing my finger on a glass right now isn't experience. Like that's just not, it's fine. It goes with me everywhere and that's great. But like, that's not gaming. Not to knock mobile games at all, because I love mobile games too, and I play them too. But with each medium, are you playing to the strength of the medium, right? And so then when we get into this or brain computer stuff or holographic displays or whatever, I think I just go back to that, like, what if there's a person, they want to go on a roller coaster and they can't? What can you do for them? And if you think in terms of that, like simple problem to solve, I think, the answers kind of start appearing and falling into place of where all this is headed and should be headed.
Right, fair enough. I mean, you rightfully pointed out. I mean, there's too much of online digital usage is also not nice. But yes, I mean, we're getting into the future where I'm sure there are a lot of these studios who are working on use cases, which is experience-driven ads utility. You have been somebody who's been, besides the entertainment gaming, has also been into the education space. Could you talk about that a little bit? The works that you have done and how, because there's this like a gamification of everything going on. Games are being used in education also. So if you could talk about that, it'll be really cool.
100%. To me, entertainment and education are the same thing. I mean, they're basically. I don't see them as being very different, and I carried that kind of perception and attitude into a couple of edtech projects that we did. One was directly with the school, where the team that I built was sitting in the library of the school, and the kids would invade our office space during the recess, and we were building sort of iPad programs, like a tech program for them, where they all had iPad. We got the best apps for them. We built custom apps for them as well. And going through that whole experience with a very a live audience, what I walked away with was that it's we're all focused on making content for children and content for education, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the real good stuff is when you can build tools for the learner, whether it's a kid or an adult, it doesn't really matter. When you can build a tool for the learner and then just get out of their way, right? And they get so invested in using that tool to do the thing, whatever it might be. It could be a tool for drawing. It could be a tool for math. It could be a tool to make projects. It could be a tool for presentations, whatever it is. And the tool should be delightful and joyful, of course, because education is entertainment. It should be fun. But when they get that reward of making something of their own, first of all, to make something of your own, you need to know the thing. You need to know the concepts. There's no way you're going to be presenting about fractions without knowing what fractions are. And when we get into that space, and it's not easy to do, this is, making a tool to for someone who doesn't know fractions to then know fractions and present or teach someone else about fractions is really difficult. But it's the holy grail. And I think when you do that is when just lots and lots of education happens, because lots and lots of engagement happens. lots of investment happens from the learner in using and making things with that tool, and then telling everybody else about what they made with that tool, right? So I love that. Like, Will used to say this about Spore, which is because a lot of people used Spore, a lot of kids played Spore, and the parents were very happy that the children were creating something and they were making something and they were learning about. It's kind of like Lego, right? So they were learning about structure at the end of the day. And so Will's statement, which stayed with me, was like, okay, what is the educational value of something? It's the core educational value times the engagement value, right? It's an equation. So if you take a textbook that it's very dense and you just can't even get through a page, education value is very high, but engagement value is very low. So that multiplier is actually reducing the net, the output educational value. But if you take something very simple that's teaching only one thing or two things, and the educational value on a surface level is low, but the engagement value is very high, then that concept is going to be cemented. It's going to be really, really well absorbed by the learner. And so that's my view on education: is it's great, everybody's done a great job making all the content, and that's amazing. But the next layer, the next chapter, I think, of ed tech should be in making tools for the learners.
Right. Any advice to people who want to get into game designs, or maybe insights on workarounds, people who are building games, what are the best ways to work around and build some games? Any advice, suggestions?
Well, let me get back to something we were talking about earlier about being multitasking or being multifaceted. And this is what I say to not just folks that want to get in, but also folks that are in games or any other industry and want to get better, which is how much do you know about the upstream and downstream department from your primary skill, and how much time do you invest in knowing about that? And why not try to do their job, right, in a low risk manner, where it's okay if you fail. The point is to learn and see what it's like to be upstream from you and downstream from you, right? So, for example, if you're a programmer that is going to, make systems and send them over to QA for testing, be a QA person for other programmers for a bit, see what that feels like, what the challenges are, and upstream from you might be a designer or a product manager giving you tasks about specific things that you need to build. Then try playing that role for a bit and try doing that. What it feels like to give a good spec or a bad spec or whatever it might be. And that empathy that creates for your upstream and downstream department is what every company dreams that their employees would have, right? And that's what makes a pipeline really efficient, where people are great at doing their job, but they also understand the upstream and downstream roles enough to make everybody else's life easier and communicate clearly with upstream and downstream so things flow nicely through the pipeline. Now, how do you project that when you're someone new and starting out and want to communicate that to someone hiring you for a very specific role? Because hiring is very narrow, like, oh, are you a programmer? I think this strategy or projecting this and having this, showing that you can actually do this, that you care about this, alone sets you a little bit higher than the rest of the field. It shows a level of maturity, and it shows a level of professionalism and awareness of the pipeline that most people trying to get in will not have. And so I would encourage people to not be afraid in starting from zero on something that they have no business knowing or learning and throwing themselves at it. There is no risk to that. And it's going to give them this little extra edge of having empathy about the upstream and downstream from your role.
Thank you, Shalin. Really, really appreciate you taking time, being part of the podcast. What comes next for you and Masala Games?
So yeah, like I said, we're on this path now to building, extending our demo and building it into a full-on game, which is going to be really, really exciting. Lots of challenges for sure, but one that we welcome, and we appreciate the privilege of being in this position and making this game. It's truly an exciting time. I really hope we're going to look back at this and be like, this was our most productive and creative time. So that's the next step for us. And of course, like everybody, we're also facing this problem of have this challenge to surmount of how to crack our audience, how to reach the people that that we know are gonna love Detective Dotson. And so we'll keep talking to folks like you to we'll catch everybody we can and tell them about it, obviously. So yeah, that's what comes next for us in terms of building the whole thing and then spreading the word about it.
Wish you and the team the very best, and I hope Detective Dotson reaches out to a larger group of users and gamers, and I hope that more gaming studios here start building or thinking about building their own IPs, their own games, rather than just creating these small things for other studios. And I hope that more and more studios come and be brave and go out for the bold and create Indian games relevant to the Indian audience. So wish you and your team the very best. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, then please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, Shalin. Appreciate this.
Thank you. Bye.